Hey there, AGA members. Chris Garlock here with Michael Redmond, and we are back with the exciting conclusion to the 28th game in the AlphaGo self-played series. If you were watching last week, I think you're going to really enjoy this end of that game. Before we pick up where we left off last week, though, we do want to ask you to consider joining the American Go Association at usgo.org. The support of our wonderful AGA members is what makes these videos possible. So a big thanks to all of you who have joined. We really appreciate it. Now, back to game 28.
So we've taken the game, like every move in the game, there's all these possibilities. So black covers here, white curled around because we looked at that move in the corner. It didn't work out. White lost by one move. So white curled around. We looked at black covering here, in which case you've probably forgot at this point. It's so much. White does make the corner variation and then gets to play that attachment on the outside. And so now we look at white's move here. We looked at white connecting here, in which case black got to improve the corner while winning the semi, or not quite winning it. It was another ko, but it was a better ko. So white connects here. So what's with this? So obviously black's got to save the 3 stones. I don't get anything coming back from you.
I have learned when you say obviously have to connect. You okay. I don't.
I gotta change my
not obviously.
Okay. Yeah, you got it. I'm okay. I gotta find a new way to trick you.
Fool me 50 times. You know, in tennis, there's so nobody beats me 15 times in a row.
Okay, so let's see what happens if black saves the cutting stones. Those are vital stones. They're cutting stones.
I mean, I wouldn't think twice about it.
In an actual game, you wouldn't think twice, would you?
No, I wouldn't.
And okay, so now if white plays at this point, we have to try to find a way to explain why this is better for white. Okay.
4, right.
Okay, we have to find a way to describe why this is better for white. It's not working if white just connects on the outside, because we're back to that variation where black improved the corner.
Yeah.
Black's just improving the corner. This is completely dead for white. Actually, all those moves that white played have a bad effect. So that's not the answer. But when white does this one, we're back to this move finally. When white does this move, and this time white's going to continue the semi. That one exchange there made a big difference. Black pushes through. Okay, let's do it straightforwardly first. Black plays here, white plays here. The point is that white has 4 liberties, black has 3. Black would like to have white take this stone, in which case black would win, but white's going to come from this side. And white wins by 1 move.
Oh, cute.
So that's one variation. So let's have white play. Black wants to play this move first. This didn't work out, so black wants to play this move first. And the big difference here is that white gets to slide to the corner now. And so one could say that the point is that black doesn't get to... black was playing this hane here, which improved the corner at the same time as filling a liberty. In this variation where white has played the placement first, it's not working for black. So that's one way to look at it. So black throws in here, white curls. This is the correct variation for both sides, so it's a bit more difficult to understand. We're going to get another ko in the corner. But you see, white has to start it. It's going to be if black plays at A, it's going to be a ko which white takes first.
Wow.
Which is good for white, isn't it?
Yeah. It seems. I mean, this is such a confusing fight. I mean, what I'm trying to figure out is how. I mean, there must be ways for one side or the other to sacrifice something and still get something out of it. That
Yeah. Well, in this variation, it was really complicated. But the end result is that if black fills at A, it's going to be a ko that white takes. And so black's going to lose the ko. And when black does lose the ko, there's that dead group on the lower side. And you can see white actually has pretty good shape in the center. Like white has a very straight wall here. which means that the center position is pretty strong too. So this is good for white.
It's good for white, yeah.
Yeah. So that really explains why it's bad for black to save the 3 stones.
Mm-hmm.
The truth of the point is that now white can play this placement here, and black has invested too much in that lower side group.
I see. Okay.
That it's no longer feasible for black to make it into a trade between the left side and that lower side. The lower side has just gotten so big.
Mm-hmm.
And the variation I was showing you was a losing ko for black. So there's throughout this whole fight here, there's always this potential for one side or the other to sacrifice on a small scale.
Sure.
So every time a move is played, the weight of which side is more important changes back and forth.
Uh-huh.
That's what's making it so. So every time they play a move, like at this point, the corner is still the focus. But once white plays here, white has no choice but to play here first. If black had played that move on this side, the focus would have changed to the side. So white would be actually black would be winning, but white would be happy with getting the ko in the corner and some extra potential in the center. So black curls now, and this makes the side group very important. But once black connects here, it makes it worthwhile for white to play that placement there. And actually, this would just lose white's group on the left side. But white will be capturing black on the lower side. So black's best choice at this point would be to back off from the lower side semi, actually, and play something like this, for instance. And white would just capture the lower side group, and black would be able to capture white on the left side. Black's next move actually is hard to choose. Something like this would be what I would call a safe move. It would be the simplest way to capture white on the left side.
That's what I was. Just keep it simple. No foolishness.
Black might try to be a bit more efficient with, for instance, something like this, but that would leave some potential, of course. But it might be better.
That looks scary.
It looks scary, yeah. So this kind of trade, black would probably be giving too much up on the left side. It's a big glob of stones, where black would have liked to make it a smaller sacrifice. So that's what's happening here. The value of the lower side compared to the left side is wavering back and forth every time they play a move. Like and so I find I'm agreeing with what they play. Like it's really surprising that black is ignoring that. But of course now, if white, let's see what I did with the final variation is this one, where white plays this move and tries to kill the corner too, right? In this case, black is going to sacrifice the corner.
Oh, yes.
And we just have to remember what was happening in the beginning of this. In the beginning of this fight, we had white cutting here in the center and trying to attack black on the left and the right.
That's right. That's right.
The corner it looked like it could be white's territory to start with. So white's got the corner territory, but if black plays at D later, there's a marked D on the board. If black plays at D, then the rest of the squeeze is going to be forcing moves. So black still has potential to squeeze from the left side. Black has a pretty good shape on the lower side here, where black is connected up completely. The corner has become black's territory, the lower right corner. And white has a weak group in the center. So cutting at the mark point there, the triangle I've marked, it hasn't turned out very well for white. White got some extra profit in the corner, but black played both C and the right side, the lower side, you might. Yeah. So black got to play 2 points on the outside, while white captured this corner.
So the sacrifice that sacrifice is not so bad for
that was
black.
Good.
Yeah.
And it's really, as you're going through all of these variations, it can be hard to see because you get involved in the local fight. But when we get to this final position, it's very easy to compare with where things got started. Let's just back up a few moves. We started with a fight like, let's back up a little bit more, where we were fighting in the center. This is a point where white was threatening the mark point, was threatening the left and the right at the same time. We take it back up several moves into the game. In this variation here, Let's see, I'm getting into a different variation. This one, yes. In this variation, black's improved his position both on the left side and on the lower side. And white's just got the corner, so that's not good enough for white.
Well, and also just got those, those stones clinging, to black's wall.
Yeah, they're pretty eyeless. Like white probably has about one eye, but it's not too.
You just would hate to try and save those, but you have to. You're too big.
Right. So white obviously, but in such a complicated variation, you sort of want to look at
there's no obviously
the other variations, right? So white just takes the 3 stones, and black takes the left side. But in this case, the left side is not completely dead.
Of course not.
Yeah. But actually, it's an even result, pretty even result, because black has a lot of profit in the lower right corner. Going back to the beginning of this variation, where white was playing probing moves like this in the corner, white still had a lot of potential towards the corner here to have a life or a ko maybe. So the fact that this corner has completely become black's territory, it reduces the value of having this stone on the right side to a certain degree. And so black, and also black has a reasonable position on the left side. Like that was an area that started out being white's corner, and we're going to find out what it is right now. Like if white plays this move first, white's going to lose because black can just squeeze from outside, and white's not going to be able to win this semi. Like it's like black just comes from behind. So black wins that one. So this move is not working in this. So the move white plays is the cut here, and so we have this ko in the corner. And again, if black connects, this is filling a liberty of his own. So black's going to lose this semi. So that's not good. So black captures, and so we have this ko that white cannot win yet at this point in the game. In fact, in this ko, it's reasonably small for black to lose. It's small enough that black can afford to lose it, and for instance, play ko threats like this in the upper left corner.
Yeah.
Or even, well, this would be a ko threat that doesn't lose. In an emergency, black might even use ko threats like this, which do lose points. But black would probably not want to use that one in the upper right. In most cases, black's going to try to avoid using that ko threat in the upper right. But black does have 3 ko threats in the upper left. So for the time being, white's sort of dead. It's going to be a ko when white throws in. But white doesn't have the ko threats for that yet. So white plays away. So we have this position in the lower side where white can throw in at A and get a ko, but it takes 2 more moves at B and C to finish that ko. So it's a step, it's not a step ko, it's a 2-stage ko that favors black.
So just for the folks at home, because it's obvious, it's a key point, and I think a lot of people would want to be playing away. What's the calculation of the value?
Oh, yes. I forgot to do that one. It's not really that big. Like the entire value, this is actually something that Cho made a very interesting comment on. In Japan, Cho is supposed to be the best player for ko fights. He loves to play ko fights. And like you can make a calculation in a direct ko where say if it takes black 2 moves to resolve a direct ko, then that means white's 1 move away from resolving the ko. White's about to fill it, you might say, and black has to take back and then fill the ko. Then you have a cycle of 3 moves, which means that you the value of that move, any given move, is 1/3 of the entire value of the ko. But it's a slightly different calculation when you have these 2-step kos, because it's going to take white 3 moves, but it's really weird. Like if white starts the ko with A, then black takes back, and it only takes 1 more move for black.
Right.
So I do that in a variation.
Sure.
If white takes with A, plays this move, it takes 2 more moves for white to win the ko, but it actually takes black 1 step closer to winning the ko. But if black plays first, If black plays first, does black want to? Well, let's start with black playing at D. If black plays first, it still takes black one more move to finish the card. So that's one free stone on the outside that white got. White got an extra move on the outside because black played first here,
Mm-hmm.
and that became a wasted move. Like in this variation, black didn't need that stone. So whichever side plays first, it's going to be the same ko. And the added explanation is that this move actually doesn't work very well. Like if white immediately went for the semi-eye, black would win by one move. But white's not going to do that. White's going to try to make an eye on the side first. And if black plays an Atari on the first line, that's going to be another ko. If black simply protects against the cut, now this is going to be a seki. Or if black would make an eye and white would make two eyes, or black can throw in and white plays here. It's a seki in either case.
Mm.
So that's just a failure for black.
Right.
It's no good. So it turns out that black has to force the ko. Black would have to play here, and white would get a ko in the corner anyway. And so I haven't even gotten to Cho's comment on it, but for the local position in this actual game, playing a move in the local area is actually pretty wasteful because neither side can resolve it with one move. Like if black plays first here, it's going to be a two-stage ko. But when black wins that ko, this move is going to become wasted. So black doesn't really want to do that. And if white plays first, then it's going to be a ko, but that will actually speed up black's winning the ko. So both players leave it. So now talking about the calculation of the size of this ko, you calculate white winning and you calculate black winning, and you calculate the difference in territory. So in this case, it's about 35 points, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And then if it was a direct ko, you would divide by 3 and say that's the absolute value of the move, which an absolute value, the way you calculate it gets a bit tricky. But each move would be, if it was 35 points and you said a third of that is the absolute value of each move, it would be something like 12 points for each move.
Right.
But when you're talking about absolute value, it's a bit different from what we usually use for the size of a move. Like if you say, so it would be about the size, double that size in the way we usually talk about it. We would call it equal to an opening point of about 20 points.
Mm-hmm.
But in this case, it takes 4 moves to finish the ko. And as you saw, the number of moves changes depending on who starts this ko on the left side. So that complicates it's easier to calculate if we start with white playing. If we start with this position, it would be relatively easy to calculate, but it would be smaller than a direct ko, making the size of each move less than 10 points. So it's
right.
Theoretically, it's not ready to be played. It's smaller than the big opening points.
And I think that's what I was just getting at was that I think that for a lot of folks, they look and they think, oh, for both sides, I'm gonna die, and it's a bunch of stones.
Yeah. But it's interesting because theoretically we can make that calculation. In an actual game, it would be a big headache to actually do it.
Yeah.
It would take some time, and we would have a number value for the size of that move. And Cho is an expert at making that evaluation. He knows how to do it, and he knows how to work it in with the rest of the game. But the point he made about that is that it turns out that the player with more ko threats is going to win the ko in any case. And so that calculation, although theoretically it's valid, it doesn't really work in a real game situation, because you can get a situation where you don't have anything equal in value to that ko. In that case, the number of ko threats is going to decide who wins the game. And so the number of ko threats surpasses in importance anything that I've been talking about the size of this code thread. So in actual
So,
practice, not only is it really hard to make that calculation and sort of integrate it into your game plan, it's pretty irrelevant for actual play, because it's much more important to envision the end result, and you just have to decide whether you're happy with that game position or not.
okay. All right.
Yeah.
That's
So
useful.
ultimately, the side with more code threats wins. So in a human game, people would be eyeing, the professional player would be eyeing this corner, not wanting to play first in it,
Right.
but would also be paying very close attention to the number of code threats throughout the
Mm-hmm.
game.
Mm-hmm.
So, and actually, although of course a computer program such as AlphaGo doesn't reason it that way, it will be a factor throughout the game, the number of code threats. So, and it's going to be really very hard to explain what I'm talking about, but it does very subtly change how the game. It's part of the reason why the rest of the game gets so ambiguous and complicated, because this corner code is just waiting to happen at any point. So the side with the side with a deficit of code threats is going to try to make it a game where it doesn't matter who wins the code, where that side can afford. For instance, white is going to try to make it okay for white to lose the code.
Right. I think it's like a little waiting time bomb.
It's a waiting time bomb, but it's like it's more than 30 points. It's about 30-point difference in territory. So when it does happen, then it's blam. It's a big difference in territory.
I like it.
It's huge. By the time it happens, it's going to be very, very big compared to everything else on the board.
Cool. All right, that's something to look forward to.
So we're starting a fight on the right side, and so white has this weak group here. White does have a connection to the corner, so it's not that weak. There's always this connection that white can play.
Right.
Stopping white from connecting there is a very small move for black to play. So black's not about to play that move either.
Mm-hmm.
So that possible connection is probably just going to be hanging around the rest of the game. And so so they move out into the center. This is where I would have played. I would have played here.
It's a nice shape.
And it could have ended up the same way, but I really like this move also. It's a neat move. It doesn't matter if white pushes here; black will just answer. Black's connected up. It's not a problem. In fact, in this case, black has the cut here to look forward to. So it's not bothering black that white got to play that. And white played here, and black played here. So we're sort of back in an interchangeable order of moves. I think it could have happened the same way if black had started with this move. But I sort of like the way that AlphaGo does it. It might not be making any difference at all, but I sort of like the way it does it backwards of the way that I would want to. White plays a peep and cuts here. It's really interesting how this cut is not working at all. Like white just plays away. White would like to make something of the cut, but black's shape here jumping straight towards the side. It turns out this shape is pretty strong when we get into a fight to capture. And I tried to find a variation that would be representative of this fight on the side, but I couldn't find any good variations that were really demonstrative of what I'm trying to say. But just having this good shape on the side, it gives black a big advantage in the coming fight to capture. So there's not really very much that white can do with this cutting stone. This cutting stone here, it doesn't really work very well for white. So white just plays away. Of course, AlphaGo doesn't like to answer peeps. Quite often, it just plays away. And so black finishes off the right side. Now that's looking like a black territory.
Yep.
For the time being, it is. White's starting to attack black in the lower left. And we have to remember there's that code that's about to happen, or waiting to happen. So white's trying to force black to start the code, to instigate the code, so that white can make a trade. So in this trade, white is playing moves from the outside. These two stones that white has played from the side are profitable moves for white. White has potential to build a huge territory on the left side of the board. So it's a lot better for white to be starting the ko with these moves than by, for instance, starting it with just simply from the corner. It's better for white to be playing valuable moves on the outside,
Right.
and sort of hoping that black will play something like this to start the ko. So that's white's idea here. It's a very I think I learned from them. It's a very important idea to be playing good moves while the ko starts. Of course, black's not listening to white. But actually, when black does play at A, this takes the ko one step further, because white covers. Black can now capture the corner group with this variation. Black is winning by one move. Black is winning by one move. Let's just go back by playing here. Now black can win by one move. Earlier, we were talking about, for instance, if black had played this move earlier, we were talking about
Right.
options for white to play stuff like this. So that's gone after this. It means that black can capture the corner. But black's never going to do that in this game. It's really interesting, because when black does do that, it actually makes the black territory a bit smaller. Black's going to have to... there's still some potential for white to do something like this at some point, and force black to play about maybe two more moves inside black's territory.
Mm-hmm.
And when black does take those white stones, for instance, off the board, this stone in the corner is going to be a wasted move that loses a point.
Wow.
So it's sort of, although there's this this sort of wish for black to play a move like this at some point and capture the corner, it's not a very efficient move. It's wasting a move, and it's losing a point in some of the reasons. So we're going to actually see black just ignore the fact that black has this option to kill the corner, and eventually black's going to find a much more efficient way of capturing those cornerstones. So it's really interesting.
Ooh, is that the game move?
This is the game move. Black has to reduce the left side. Like, even if black captured the lower left corner, allowing white to surround the entire left side would be a losing scenario.
Right.
But black has to be careful, because there's this group here that is not completely alive if white wins the ko in the corner.
That's right.
This group here, for the time being, it looks okay, but it could eventually become weak. And of course, we have to remember that this white group is not completely alive, but it does have that connection to the upper right corner, and it has some space into the center. So these are the groups that will be threatened in the coming fight.
1, 2, 3, 4.
And now white plays this move, which looks sort of stupid, because it's actually making the corner position even better for black. But there's a reason for this move, because if white plays here, there will always be the option for black to cut white here.
I was trying to figure that. I see. It's easy.
And well, it's easy to cut. Actually, this would be bad for black locally. The local fight is just fine for white, because black is in trouble on the side there, and this has actually made the cut here a real threat that white can aim at.
Yep.
So it's not something that black is going to be doing immediately. It's no problem for white at this point. So that's why a player might hesitate to play this move. But actually, it's not making the corner so bad anyway, because, as I was saying, black can kill the corner with this move. So has that changed? Actually, white can still get a ko. So there's actually very little difference in what's happening with the corner, because white can still play at C to get a ko. And if black is going to play first and try to kill the corner, again, black will play at C to kill the corner. So it's actually, although this exchange of A for B looks like it's bad for white in the fight in the corner, it hasn't changed anything. It's still the same ko that will be starting at C, or if black plays at C, it's going to be a dead white group. It's the same position altogether. So this is maybe even a kikasi. It's maybe a good exchange for white. And so black plays here. So now black has left the left side for the time being. But, it seems clear that white doesn't have time to finish off the left side. but it's not so clear.
Well, not with those white stones in the middle right.
They're looking in trouble, aren't they?
They
but
are.
Actually, white does play away.
Whoa, whoa! I mean, it's like one move and then they're gone.
One move, right? Well, this one doesn't work because white will just play.
What about just the Hane?
Just to show you that one, yeah.
Oh, I forgot about that. Yeah. Right. It's got the back door.
And so there's still some space, like if black, this is the game move actually. So black can play here.
Close the door.
White covers here. Black actually plays once in the center. And then if black plays here, now the door is closed. So we might say, isn't white in trouble now? And white's going to die. White's going to die, but it's I'm not sure whether it's going to be good for black because we get something like this. And black can kill the left side. I'm sorry, black can kill the right side. And now that white is dead, it's okay for white to start the ko because white has co-threats. You know, if you get a dead group, then you're going to have some co-threats.
That's
the good side of dying. Right. So now white's going to win the ko. And although A could be viewed as a co-threat, it's also white's threatening to push through at A and cut off that black group on the left side.
Yes.
So this is a ko that black cannot afford to lose, but white has the co-threats to win the ko. So the question is, actually, black might play moves like this for the time being, but white still has enough. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to do that one. White still has some co-threats on the right side. So in the end, white's going to win the ko. Black's best move will turn out to be playing something like this to save the side group, and white's going to eventually win the ko.
Wow.
And left side looks pretty good too.
It sure does.
So this is actually looks like it's going to be a losing variation for killing the right side. Although it succeeds tactically, it's probably not a very good idea for. So black plays once more in the center. If white answers that, it's going to change the whole equation. So I had black play one more forcing move. I don't know if this is the correct move or not, but it certainly simplifies things for the variation I'm about to show. So I had black play this forcing move and white answer it just to keep things simple. And now black's going to play that same variation, but it's going to be a completely different result because now you can see black's putting pressure on those white stones in the center. And the borderline of white's territory is just completely different. Black gets an extra move on the upper side. That's sort of necessary to give a living shape there. Black still has the potential connection at C. And white's left side has been reduced by the stone at A. We can see that stone has been connected up to the main group. And black got an extra move on the upper side. So this actually makes this a good variation for black, and at any time black can connect up at C.
Wow.
And also if white pushes through here, I should point out that black can peep once. And now the stone here, the cutting stone, cannot escape. So that's how black can, and then black would just add another move to the, so this would not work for white. So the point is that even though white can start a ko at B, black always has that escape route at C. And there's no way for white to take it away.
It's a lot to keep track of.
Even if white plays here, black can play an attachment once. And then and black again has that escape route. That's important because if black had just answered here, then it would have been a different story. Like just having hypothetically have white win the ko. This time white's going to cut black off from this side. So it was important that black played this move first.
I see. Okay,
yeah. And has an escape route. And so let's see. Have I clarified? Yeah. So
yes.
So in this variation, black has gained a lot of extra points on various sides. So the stone at A has been reduced white's left side, and the upper side, black's got an extra move on the upper side too. So that seems to be okay for black. So it's not as if winning the ko is going to resolve everything, because in all of the variations, it's going to be a close game. You can sort of take that for granted with AlphaGo, but it's also in looking at the various variations, that's been one of the biggest problems for me because they're all pretty close.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's very hard for me to judge the positions because they're really close, and I have to go far into the end game to get a realistic estimation.
Hmm.
So black is actually threatening to take white's right side in this variation, where black gets these extra forcing moves and then goes after the right side. So now white saves the right side. At any point, white can play at this point. And this is either going to connect up to the corner or capture the black stone to get a living shape.
Right.
So that's a potential that white doesn't really want to use because it's going to lose points in the corner. But maybe it's a last resort. It's a safety belt. It's a last resort for white to do that. So white's going to start with the center, and black just jumps in. White plays 2 moves in the center, and we see things are turning around a bit again. Now it's black who's under attack. White's under attack too, but black's under attack too.
Mm-hmm.
It's really hard to keep track of who's under attack because now, again, the value of the corner the ko in the lower left corner is increased again because this group here is starting to get isolated again. And we have to remember that this group is not completely alive either. So all of this is gonna, and we have to remember the white group has potential to get weak. So there's all these weak groups that are trying to attack each other.
I feel like we should put like little sticky notes on each one of those, and we can move them around. Those little arrow sticky notes.
Yeah, maybe happy faces and sad faces to show how healthy.
That's perfect.
Okay, the game move white played here. This is a kind of a vital point in the shape. For instance, I just showed a variation. It's not 100% correct in the order of moves, but just a variation to show you what might be happening in the center when they both try to kill each other. Black's going to end up with this shape in the center. So this is pretty good shape in the center. So the whole point is that just before I go further into the variation, the whole point of this move is this is going to change that shape. Just to go back into this variation here, white's going to cut black off here. Black is actually winning the semi by only 1 move, so black has to fill a liberty, and it's going to be the ko again. So this is an example of white, the ko that white sort of wants to play, but in this case, it's complicated by the fact that white's not so strong on the right side either. So white has to answer these moves that black is playing as ko threats because white's group on the right side is weak. And white is sort of running out of ko threats. Black still has a peek at C that black can play as a ko threat. And so this looks like white is going to run out of ko threats. And you can see that black has very good shape on the outside, especially with that shape at B. So that is what white is trying to change by playing this move. But black just ignores it. Like if black had pulled back and we got into a similar variation, black's shape in the center would not be quite as good.
Right.
But black just ignores it blithely and jumps into the white territory. This is a very big territorial move. Like it's hard to say whether that move is best or this move is best. Locally, they're about equal, I think. But this move, in either case, it's a big territorial move.
Wow.
Black, it doesn't really look like black's connected up in the center.
I was trying to see what
Yeah. Well, actually, black can play this and then play this, and something like this. The idea is that black can use the attachment at B to get this shape where black is threatening a double Atari.
Right.
I don't really remember why I put that move in the corner. It's just a habit that I've been given by those computer programs. Yeah. It's probably not very meaningful. So white doesn't do that. White cannot actually surround the black group very easily. But it does involve, this is a move where black is hoping to exchange, well, black has the right, you might say, to exchange for A, and this is going to take some pressure off black by getting rid of the cut at B. White peeps. Again, we can see this has to do with that problem. So black plays this move now. And we can see that is, again, it's setting up the double Atari. So when this happens, white A will always meet black B, and it's not going to work out for white. Why don't we make it a variation? White A will always be black B. So this is just not working. And again, you see it looks dangerous, but there's this stuff in the corner which is going to make it just bad for white, whatever white does.
Wow.
It's not even going to be a real ko here. It's just that white's in shortage of liberties. It's damizumari, as they say in Japan.
Right.
And so A is always met with B, and black's okay there. So black was sort of playing it safe with that attachment. But so the status of this fight, again, there's that pending ko in the lower left corner, which will affect the health of black's group on the outside. For the time being, white still has two groups. Why don't I mark them? White has this group on the left and this group on the right. Both of them are not really, you can't say they're completely settled at this point. But white has that ko in the corner by playing here, which will put a lot of pressure on black. And of course, black's group on the left is, although black can answer white A with B, it does look like it's not the happiest group on the board.
Right.
For the time being, black's group in the upper right, it looks pretty healthy. So obviously, that's the group that ends up making two eyes. Okay. So white's not going to do that. White pushes, again, this is threatening to cut. And we can see that the number of liberties that this group owns is getting shorter and shorter. So this is sort of trouble. It's annoying for black, you might say. So black just connects. And white pulls back. And we get to this point where now white is suddenly, it changes. The whole game changes when white plays this move and is going to break through the center and start to attack black in the upper right. So this is where the attack on black's group in the upper right is going to start. White just keeps on pushing through the center and simply connects with a knight's move. Black has to add one more stone here. So this is completely settled black's group on the left. Although we're going to see black making eyes at the end of the game. It's very safe for the time being. White has improved white's group on the left. We can see this group here is looking a bit happier now that it sort of looks like it's connected, but it's not. But it's one step closer to being connected up, maybe to these stones in the upper side. And it still has pushing through. I've marked up too many places. Let's just leave this one mark. Pushing through here at the mark point is another escape route that this group has. It's okay for the time. And now white connects. So this is completely isolating that black group in the upper right, this group here. So now white is attacking. Black has this group in the lower left that still has that code that's going to happen. So it's worrying, isn't it?
I'm worried, but I'm not sure what I'm worried about.
Yeah. Okay. And we have black playing this move. Looks like an endgame move. But actually, this move is setting up the move at A next, which will capture 3 stones.
Right.
So so white plays once here. That doesn't make any difference. And now white starts the ko. So we come to the
ko.
And actually, when the ko actually starts, this makes it slightly easier to understand what's going on, because now the focus will be on this ko that's happening. Black does have some eye space, and it's really interesting. Like you would expect black to take the ko, but black doesn't. Black just plays here. So black, since it's not a direct ko, it's not over yet. It's going to continue. Black has changed the value of everything with this move because now black's group is alive. The group on the outside is alive, and so that means that black has the leisure to play ko threats against this group or this group, because now suddenly black has the advantage here. Black has potential to threaten to cut off this white group on the right, or to threaten to cut off this group on the left, just because black is alive on the lower left. And just to show you what I'm talking about, I added this variation. Black has made an eye here in the upper right, so black has one eye with a tempo. This move that black has just played at P14, it has one eye and it's threatening to make a second eye there. And it's really hard to see where black's next eye will be. Oh, I didn't do that. Okay. Where black's next eye will be if white plays here, for instance. Let's have white do it a different way. Let's have white do it this way. This sort of mirrors what happened in the game. Black only has one eye here.
Wow.
So this is how white, for instance, can take away that one eye and make it just one eye there. But black actually has ways to make an eye here, or here, or here. And I would have to go into a lot of detail to show you how that happened. So we're going to wait for it to happen in the game.
Okie
But
dokie.
just take my word for it for the time being.
I will take your word for it.
And so otherwise, since black has played away, one might expect white to continue playing the ko, but white didn't. White took away black's eye. Because it turns out, so this is the game move. And this is the variation I've made. Because actually this is a very big point here. It looks like it's a 1-point move, but actually it changes black's eye shape. And this completes black's eye shape. Now black has one eye here with the 2 stones, and a second eye here or here. So black has a completely living shape. That's nice. One of the values of this move. After white connects, black pushes through here. Now this gives black, this actually changes the status of this black group. Because before this just happened, black only had this one eye on the upper side, and there was potential for white to squeeze it a little bit. So pushing through here on the 4th line at D10 actually changes the status of that black group a good deal. And so that's going to change how the endgame end finishes. White has an opportunity to finish the ko. White's won the ko. As I told you, that's about more than 30-point difference.
Right.
The value changed a little bit actually when we had these black stones here. So the value decreased to, I think it is about 30 points now. 16, 18, 20, 30, slightly more than 30 points. Now black plays here. This is a double attack. White connects. And suddenly white's in trouble in the center.
Whoa.
I mean on the right side.
Yeah.
And black can force with this stone. This is bad. It's sort of fun, actually.
It's very fun. Wow.
There's some pressure on black, too. But actually capturing these 3 stones is not going to give white a living shape. White's going to just... so the key point at A, this is all the marks I made. The key point at A, inducing white to connect and allowing black to push through at B in a natural sequence. And then C is the double threat that kills one or the other of the white groups. If white continues with this, black can just add a stone to the right side, for instance. Yeah, I think that was okay. Or black could have just simply added a stone. And so that white group can capture the 3 stones, but that would be a dead shape. No second eye.
No second eye. No second eye. Wow. I've been worried about that group for a while, but I thought it was okay.
You thought it was okay.
I did.
Right. It changes all the time. So this is actually this move here. Not only does it give black a living shape, but it sets up that attack at this point, which is really... and the point is that if white... so maybe it was a bad idea for white to finish the ko, but if white does stuff like this, it means that black still has that move in the center, an extra ko threat there, and black is completely alive in the lower left. It means that black has leisure to play just about any ko threat. And white's ko threats, the number of white ko threats is decreased a little bit. Because black's group in the upper left is stronger than it was before. And black's group, I mean, the upper left and the lower left, both groups are stronger than before. And pushing through here was a big bonus. This push through at D10 was a big bonus that got. So white actually answers it. So this is taking some pressure off white in the center and keeping the pressure on black's group in the lower left. And retaining some potential profit in squeezing black in the upper left. And also keeping a bit more pressure on black's group in the upper right. So there's a lot of groups that are involved with this seemingly small move that was played in the center. black takes the ko. And white has some ko-threats here. Black has some ko-threats too. So and this is where in the SDF file I was explaining that black has two eyes, but it's still not very complete. Black has the cut at B, which can help black to make an eye at C, or help black to make an eye with a combination of D and E. It's probably not still completely crystal clear, but it will be shown later in the game. White has some more ko-threats here. White has a lot of ko-threats. So, this is, white chose a good time in the game to finally start the ko. But both players have ko-threats, actually. So now we come to the point where white's still playing valid ko-threats. Both sides are playing very big moves. Again, this is threatening white in the center. So white has to push through here. Let's see, did I make a variation for that? I made a variation for that. If white does not push through, black will play the bamboo joint. And so this has a double purpose. It saves the black group in the lower left by making a potential connection there. And it puts pressure on white.
Right.
Now that was just a mistake. I think I was meaning to end at this point because it puts pressure on white on the right side and on the left side. So a lot of white groups are affected by this. And so white answers that. Black takes the ko. So this is a point where I actually disagree with the move that AlphaGo made.
Whoa, really?
And that's just because I see the end result of the game.
Okay.
But this was an opportunity. I don't know why white did not continue playing the ko. That's the point of my variation here. White had this ko threat, which is threatening to kill the black group in the upper right.
Yeah.
Black will answer it. And it's also a part of a logical endgame sequence in which white will cut at A. And we're going to see something very similar to this happen.
Sure.
White will cut at A to squeeze the black group.
Right.
And the ko is undecided. It being a two-step ko, there's no way that I could find to finish this variation. There's a lot of possible trades that could happen when the ko is going to take two moves. In this position, it's going to take two moves for either side. And so there's a lot of variations. A lot of them will be reasonably close. So I sort of gave up at this point. There's a lot of things that could happen. I'm going to call it undecided.
Okay. All right. Yeah, no, that makes sense.
This move, for one thing, it really simplified the game and took us into the end game. And it turns out that black had a very small advantage in the end game. And I couldn't find any mistakes. I'd be surprised if I did, but I couldn't find any mistakes. And so I sort of guessed that black is probably winning once the ko is ended.
I see.
So that's one reason. Also, it is clear that this ko threat is smaller than any of the ko threats that white played up to this point. Like this ko threat was. Let's try to find a ko threat. This ko threat was a lot bigger because white would just take the 3 stones, squeezing first and then taking the 3 stones like this. Black has gotten an extra a little capture there in once. So that was a captured white stone plus this stone that black has on the outside. It makes a difference to the status of black's connection there in the center. So that's a pretty important stone that black got in there. It helps black connect up those 4 stones that are stuck to white's wall.
Right.
And so this ko threat is, there's a big difference in size compared to the ko threats that white is being played so far.
Right.
So this was an opportunity for black to finish the ko. And black did. So white gave, but this move would be it threatens the whole black group, so it's sufficiently big enough that black would not be able to play away, and the ko would continue.
Yeah.
So all I can say is that the ko would continue. Black has ko threats at B and C, but those would be losing points, maybe.
Well, so maybe our viewers
we'd have to ask
weigh in.
AlphaGo. Maybe black's going to win anyway, the ko, but my feeling is that if black is forced to play moves like B or C, then it would be good for white to be playing this anyway, because they would be losing points and would change the status of the game, obviously.
Right.
So that's something we have to ask AlphaGo sometime and see what it says. But black finishes the ko, white takes the ko. And black has to add a stone to the right side here.
Right.
White starts to attack the black group. Now this is threatening to play at A next, to make an I there.
Okay.
So white answers that. And now black can cut here. So this is actually, this whole variation was slightly simplified by the fact that black got this stone in before it happened. It made it a lot more easy to understand the mechanics of how this was working for black. Because after getting this cut, it was obvious that black could make an I at A.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's obvious that white has to answer on the left side here. Otherwise, black would just cut these white stones off. Like if white played here, the white stones would just be dead.
Nice.
So white has to answer on the outside. Cool. It means that black now has an I, can make an I here. So that was alive. So that's the simplified explanation.
Done. Yeah.
And even before, when black did not have this marked stone here, it was very similar. Like the threat to make an I at this point, or in some cases, black would capture this stone to make an I, or to make an I at this point using that cut at B. Mm-hmm. It was one of those two things at all times. Although the actual in the actual game, having this marked stone in the center, let's get rid of some of those markers. Having this marked stone at J10 does make it a lot simpler to understand, but it doesn't really change the essence of how black makes eyes. And so we're getting into an endgame. White's trying to squeeze the black group on the left side, does to a small degree, and does make a difference in endgame. And we're playing a fairly straightforward endgame now, which makes sense. Like there's at this point, there's no codes left to complicate it. And so it's pretty straightforward. Like sometimes there's a ko, and it gets really complicated trying to understand what AlphaGo is doing with it sometimes. Mm-hmm. But in this case, it's a relatively straightforward endgame. They're just playing the biggest moves. And so nothing special. There is a kind of a strange ko at the end. That happens. AlphaGo likes to play around with the final ko. When it's losing anyway, it doesn't want to finish the ko. Mm-hmm. And it in this position, white's just trying to get the extra point, but it's not going to work out. Refusing to connect that ko there. And obviously, from the human viewpoint, moves like capturing here in the center, when black plays the forcing move here, obviously it's better for white just to connect.
Of course.
But this is not going to change the result of the game. It's not going to change the fact that white's going to lose anyway in itself. Like black will play the correct moves when it has to. Uh-huh. Even in fact, black's move here was not correct, because it would have been better maybe for black to throw in to get some extra ko threats. Like this one would be giving black 3 ko threats locally.
Clever.
So it's not playing, strictly speaking, it's not playing the correct moves that any professional player would see immediately. It would be obvious that it's better for black to throw in here. It would be obvious that it's better for white just to connect. But the point is that it doesn't make any difference to the end result. So AlphaGo doesn't care. So we have this final ko here, which white can win, if I recall correctly. But it wants to fill all the liberties. And there's a difference there. Like this move here white filled the dame. It was an opportunity for white to fill the ko. But with the Chinese rules where you're counting stones, there are some rare cases where it's good to fill all the dames if you have enough ko threats.
Wow.
That would actually make a 1 stone difference. Mm-hmm. And that translates to 2 points in the territory counting rules. It would change the result of the game. but white doesn't have enough co-threat to do that. And the game ends with black taking the ko, but white's going to win this ko day. And black is going to win. I think it was, 3/4 of a stone. I think that's what it was. I've written it down in the STF.
Oh, wow. So it's interesting, after all of that fuss and bother and all of the incredible, fight in the opening, and then all of the different groups, the end game is actually fairly clean and straightforward. No fireworks, really.
Yeah, no fireworks in the end game. And you can see everything peacefully lived.
Mm-hmm.
No dead groups, no trades in the end. Everything stayed sort of status quo. But there was always, throughout the game, the potential for these huge trades, huge furikawaris. And none of them happened. That was really, and as far as I could understand, there were good reasons for the trades not to happen. The players were offering trades, and they were offers that could not be taken most of the time.
Offers that couldn't be refused. The furikawari the furikawari that wasn't.
Yes.
Right. The dog that didn't. The dog that did not bark. All right. Well, I hope folks have enjoyed this as much as I did. Amazing, and as usual, Michael, just wonderful work, and really a lot of running those out, and I see you couldn't resist some of those variations, but I think you didn't really have a choice in a lot of those cases, because there's no way to explain what's going on without running some of those
especially
out.
Especially in that fight that the game started with in the lower side.
Yes.
There were variations where white could try to win the corner semi and could try to make a ko. I just virtually had to make a variation for every move just to show show some of the basic concepts there,
right?
How they worked into the game.
Right. Well, we appreciate that, and just a reminder, folks. We do read all of your comments, so whatever you want to weigh in on, or if you have questions, just let us know, and we're happy to follow up on those. Thank you, of course, Michael. And of course, thanks once again to all of our wonderful AGA members who do make these videos possible. And we hope that you'd like to support this content as well. So just hop on over to usgo.org. Lots of cool stuff there. Real easy to join. Just takes a few minutes. We appreciate the support. Thanks for watching, and see you all next week.